She says, I used to be a size 10 before my first child, and now I'm a size 14. I really love my children, but I feel like, especially after the last delivery, my belly has gotten bigger. I'm very active and I go to the gym 3 times a week, but despite being able to do sit-ups, 30 sit-ups at the go, my belly still has a significant bulge. Last month, I went to a party without my corset, and a few of my friends congratulated me for getting pregnant. The most embarrassing one was last week when my last born asked me if she was getting a new brother. Please, I need help in making this my belly flatter. It makes me very uncomfortable in public. And that's from, let's call her Ajwa for the purposes of this conversation.
Right.
So she really wants to know whether something can be done about the belly, the love handles, and whatnot.
Right. So good afternoon to all our listeners. It's good to be back here in the studio another Wednesday. And good to be here with my very good friend, Dr. Nii Ayi Ankrah. We started a conversation on plastic and reconstructive surgery last week, Nii, and it was great insight. From the feedback that we got, you talked to us about moving tissues around in the minds of a lot of people. That's very, very creative, almost like an artist. People don't often think of doctors as artists, but I think you created that impression last week in the minds of a lot of our listeners. We also touched on something last week, that the way you look also affects your health.
Yep.
And when we talk about health, we're not only talking about physical health, but when we're talking about mental health. So, Kwame, it's also very, very important that we look at health in all its 3 dimensions: physical health, mental health, and then social health. Most often than not, the focus is on physical health. So the way people look, either because of injuries or because of some congenital problems, may affect their self-esteem and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
Today, we've got we're going to discuss something where, because of a very natural process, pregnancy and childbirth, it may affect the way your body looks.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't know about guys, but women, the way they appear to the world matters a lot to them. Or is it the same for men too?
Well, yeah, some men are quite, concerned about how they look too.
Okay.
I mean, there are a lot of men in the gyms. What do you think they are doing in the gym?
Okay.
They're trying to look good.
For what purpose?
Mental health.
Right.
No mind if he spends more time than
Right. So, Dr. Ankrah, today we want to look at the so-called, people like, you use the word body contouring, but people also say body sculpturing. They want to,
enhancement,
chisel, cut shape, and all of that. What is body contouring?
So, for us, there are a series of different procedures that we do to improve, reshape the body or rejuvenate it. And you could say it's for aesthetic purposes, but it can also be therapeutic. For example, the scenario that we just had, this lady, the 43-year-old, is a very common thing that we see, that they have this bulge in their abdomen, and I'll explain it a bit later.
Okay.
But I've had people who have had like disfiguring accidents where you've got a very large cut over your buttock or on the side of your body.
Right.
It's been stitched, but it means you can't even wear, say, jeans, because everybody can see that there is some kind of a contour defect.
Right.
Or it looks misshapen.
Right.
So body contouring can be done for just the aesthetic purposes or for therapeutic purposes.
Is that why some people do what you call liposuction?
Yes. So liposuction is a procedure where you suck out fat from under the skin. And again, that can be done. For example, this scenario I painted, I have seen one quite recently. A lady who had an accident, and it was a severe one that cut through the skin over her buttocks. So in stitching it back, it kind of looks like one bit is lower than the other. And so the fat is sort of displaced. Now there are different things you can do, but in this scenario, one side is bigger than the other. So you can suck out some of the fat so that it now becomes equal.
Okay.
There are other instances where you can suck out the fat and move it to another place, which can be done in what is popularly called the BBL.
Ah, right. Okay.
The BBL, no.
Brazilian butt lift. I don't know if I'm allowed to see.
Yes.
But it basically moves fat from your belly and transfers to your buttocks. It may be done to make your buttocks larger.
Okay.
But there are, for example, another one I saw just today. She has these divots on the. It's like when she wears trousers, you can see that just over the hips there's a dent on both sides.
Okay.
So we are taking out fats to fill that area so that it becomes better rounded and it's not dipping.
It pushes out.
Yes.
It gives it a curvature.
The Coca-Cola shape.
Okay. Wait. So what about tummy tuck?
Tummy tuck is a different thing. But tummy tucks and liposuction can go together. But in this first scenario we talked about, the 43-year-old lady, she would need a tummy tuck because having had so many children, she's had 3 children, but I suspect they were relatively big ones.
Big babies, to stretch the abdomen.
That the six-pack muscles, they may have been stretched out a little bit. And that's why, despite her many sit-ups, she can't get her belly flatter because there's a bit of a gap in between, and it makes the abdominal content sort of seem like they are pushing out a bit.
Oh, okay.
So on
So
that
then-
particular, is
yes.
the problem the fat accumulation, or the problem is the muscle stretching and the muscle weakness?
It's a bit of both.
And what did you do?
So the skin has been stretched a little bit. So the muscles are a bit weak and there's excess skin. So what we do in a tummy tuck is to remove that excess skin and at the same time tighten the muscles.
Okay.
So by doing that, you get a flatter belly, and that excess skin is taken away.
Okay.
So in effect, is it possible to do the liposuction and the tummy tuck together?
Yes. So a lot of times it's not just making the belly flatter, but you might find out you have, say, love handles at the side, a little bit of folds at the back. So we use liposuction to bring the love handles down. We take out a little extra fat on the back, and then maybe at the upper abdomen, whilst we flatten out the belly. So, in fact, now it's a very common thing that you do liposuction alongside a tummy
The
tuck,
tummy tuck.
because it gives better and more pleasing results.
I mean, it all sounds very complicated, but for somebody who wants to do or who wants to go through this contouring, body contouring surgery, what's the process like? Is it something that...
Well, of course, we first have to... what we have to remember is these are surgical procedures.
Right.
They are, for us as plastic surgeons, they are not as technically challenging as the more complex ones we'll do with burns and with all those other injuries I described. But they also take a long time. So we start off with a consultation where we get to know. The main goal is to figure out what you want and whether we can meet what you want, because this is purely about meeting the client's preferences. So what do you want? Is it achievable? And then we also have to assess to see whether you're healthy enough. Whether then we examine you to look at what places we can make better, where we have to remove excess skin, whether you need just a liposuction or you need a tummy tuck as well.
Right.
So we go through quite a lengthy consultation. We run some lab tests. You see an anesthetist because you need to be put to sleep for these surgeries. And then once everything is cleared, then we go ahead. We tend to avoid certain types of patients, if I put it, just avoid in
Yeah,
quotes,
that's-
but
that's good
very
answer.
unrealistic
You-
expectations. I usually say this, but I guess a lot of people may know this, but if you look like Lizzo, it's unrealistic to think that by the end of the surgery you're going to look like Beyonce.
Okay, I get it.
Yeah, but so what is realistic? What can be achieved? If you have unrealistic expectations, we'll say away. If you are depressed or you have some mental challenges, sorry,
Yeah, mental health.
Yeah, so,
disorders.
then
will have to be
then
seen
you
by.
have to we have to
psychiatrist
avoid
before.
such patients, and then people who think that it's a weight reduction thing.
Yes.
It's not a weight reduction surgery. It's about contouring and making things look better.
In fact, Abba just sent a message on our WhatsApp platform and is ask the doctors what happens when you put on weight after all these procedures.
That's a very interesting question. So,
But maybe before you answer that, why don't you take a step back to that point you made about it is not a weight reduction surgery? Because I think a lot of people think that if I want to lose weight, I can go and take all of this fat away and then I lose weight. Why are you saying it is not a weight reduction surgery?
like we said, it's contouring, so we are trying to shape things out. There is fat under the skin, and it's in multiple layers. So technically, we could talk about 2 layers. We aim for the deeper layer, but we can't take away this, the more superficial layer.
Okay.
Then there is also the fact that there's even fats inside your belly
Right.
that covers your intestines, and we can't reach that one. In fact, we wouldn't even dare to. So you typically, even the largest people that we'll work on, you probably lose maybe about 1 kilo or 2,
Yeah.
maximum 3 kilos.
Right.
So if you
So
think we're going to drop you
between
from
2 to
100 to
4% of your body weight. So
Okay.
that's not really a lot,
no, probably even less.
or even less. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So
So-
that is why, Kwame, it is not weight reduction. Even people think that liposuction, I'm going to suck up all the fat and from my belly, and then I'm going to drop my weight. My BMI is going to be great, and all of that. Because that's where Abba's question is coming from. Like, what happens when you put on weight after these procedures?
Typically, we would want somebody who is having a steady. You've been trying to lose weight and you've reached a steady point. Then we'll consider working on that. So it's usually maximum about 10% outside your ideal body weight. But obviously, if you don't improve your diet and your lifestyle,
Right.
you're just going to put on weight again, because we don't remove all the fat, and there is some fat left behind, and it will grow.
Right.
So it means that you could literally go for a liposuction and a tummy tuck, and then after a couple of years, you come back with another pot belly.
Kwame, it's not a couple, poo. A couple years is far off, because they just go back into their old lifestyle, and then they just pile on again. You know, one, your genetics, your genetic predisposition to obesity is there. It's not gone anywhere from the liposuction. Number 2, if you've not developed an exercise regime or a habit, or dietary restrictions or a dietary habit, then all these things are factors that make a big contribution to your development of excessive weight.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you have to have demonstrated a certain adaptation to these things. Then it makes it easier for the plastic surgeons to then also help you. So it's very, very important during the consultation process for that understanding to be made. I think some of your colleagues actually would demand for people to demonstrate weight loss using exercise and dietary before they would agree to even operate.
Yeah, and sometimes we get people who come in who are morbidly obese or obese, and they are looking for help, because sometimes it's like you said, genetics or something else, and typically those will require these massive weight loss procedures,
Right.
which eventually they would end up with us to help to contour, because after losing a large amount of weight, you may have
get some redundant skin
which needs to be resected.
Right.
That's a completely different area altogether.
Okay. But are there some complications with these procedures, the tummy tucks and the liposuctions?
Yeah. So obviously in the consultation we explain all these things. Typically, well, for liposuction and each procedure would have its complications, and we explain that. But it's a surgical procedure, so we look before to make sure that everything is okay before we start.
Right.
We are taking out fat, so we create a bit of space there, and sometimes fluid can collect in there. It's some of this clear yellowish fluid, or it could be blood.
Right.
Typically, we leave certain things in to take it out, but once in a while, a few weeks after, you may have these collections, and we'll have to take that out. Sometimes the wounds, especially if you do a tummy tuck, and especially in people who are very obese, when you do a tummy tuck, there could be a breakdown of a little part of the suture line. We are not gods. As much as we are artistic, we are not gods. So sometimes you may find out that things don't match up perfectly, and it may look like this side is slightly bigger than the other. But sometimes too, it's just the procedure after and the swelling that occurs.
Okay. Well, what are some of the common misconceptions about these procedures that you have, that we're talking about, the body contouring procedures?
Well, I've already mentioned that
weight loss.
It's not a weight loss thing.
Right.
And in saying that, I also said that the results are not permanent. If you don't maintain a good lifestyle, you will put on weight again. Right. Some people believe that body contouring procedures are only for women. I think you started off by saying that, but it can be done by men. Even tummy tucks can be done by men.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Really?
But definitely not the BBL.
It depends on what the person wants.
I saw some macho man dancing to Kim Paluta's song. That guy looks like he has done BBL.
and then.
So, Nii, do you actually get male patients? In your practice?
Yeah.
You do?
We do.
For the
again,
got up the pot belly thing. We like it too.
It's
like
not just about pot belly. Again, it could be somebody who has had massive weight loss and has redundant skin, so it needs to be resected. It could be somebody who has developed gynecomastia, where we typically call them man boobs.
Yes.
And they need to be contoured.
So the man boobs too, you can contour them?
Oh yeah.
Then you look like you have Arnold Schwarzenegger chest.
It can be done.
Oh.
Right here.
Now,
I've been lifting weights for like 1,000 years just to look like Arnold Schwarzenegger.
I think another thing people talk about is that it's not necessary. Again, we spoke about the fact that health is a state of, there's also a mental state of health which needs to be dealt with.
Yeah.
Some people think that they are dangerous, and I would say that in the right hands, it's a good thing. And then I think a lot of people say that it's expensive. Typically, it's more expensive than doing, say, a hernia repair.
Of course.
But in the grand scheme of things, and like you mentioned, flying out of the country, and the fact that, it's what we would do for a tummy tuck here is sometimes even 10% of what it would cost to do outside.
10%.
Wow.
Yeah.
10%. Wow.
That's interesting.
It could be 10%.
Wow. But, on that last point again about the vanity of it all, I think people need to understand that the way you look can actually affect your life. It can ruin your self-esteem, your ability to go out, to be in public, to take even certain jobs, and so on and so forth. Some people, yes, they've got this thick skin. They don't care if somebody says, "Oh, you got bob nose." I mean, I'm sure when it's good, people will say bob nose.
Yeah.
Referring to somebody with an unusually large, nose. There's this guy in Presec at the time. I used to call him Sticks. You know why I call him Sticks? I mean, media, cassava sticks.
Yeah.
So he took up that nickname, and then we used to call him Sticks. He didn't care about it, and went with the flow. But a lot of people actually suffer severe depression because of how they see themselves when they stand in front of the mirror.
Yeah.
Whether it is because of genetics, whether it's because of accidents, injuries, all these things are very important. So it's not just vain.
Yeah. And we work a lot with the psychologists, not because our patients are in quotes mad, but largely because, like you're saying, the typical example is this lady who says that she can't go out without her corset because people start talking about her. And we get that all the time. And sometimes they need a little bit of psychological support, even whilst we are considering surgical intervention. To help them, because these things can be very challenging.
Well, I mean, we had to get psychological help for Dr. Osafo. He was worried about the baldness, but now look at him. He's grown thick skin. You know longer bothers when they say he's bald. It's not part of it.
They always have complimentary things about men who are bald.
But like this woman who wants to do a procedure because of her belly after giving birth and whatnot, what are the things to look out for? What are the main considerations? She probably has listened to you. Yeah, it's safe. It can be done in Ghana. Medicas Hospital will do that for you. But what really are the things to look out for?
Or if she goes to
well, once she decides, I mean, to go for
the patient. Okay, so
steps.
If she is going to look for, in quote, shop around, I think she should first of all think about the surgeon. People are afraid to ask, but what's his experience? How many of these cases has he done? Can he show you some pictures? What's his qualification? People ask me sometimes,
very important,
please, have you done this before? Where did you go to medical school? And I tell them, because the patient must feel comfortable. Number two, the facility, the place that she's going to, does it look right? Okay. Of course, you can't be taken into the theater, but you would like to look around and see what the place looks like. Do they have HEFRA accreditation?
The regulatory body for the health sector.
For the health sector. Are they registered? Do things look neat around the place? And what do the staff look like in the facility that you're?
But even they can actually in serious places you actually get a tour of the theater. You can actually get a tour of the theater. And for example, at our end, especially with the pregnant women, we do it a lot with the pregnant women, because every pregnancy potentially the labor can end up in the theater, and most of the time you don't want, in that case, they're so frightened when they get into the theater, BP's shooting through the roof. So as part of their regular antenatal visit, we send them to the theater. We let them go there, so it doesn't feel like a shrine. To them on D-Day. So Nii, that particular point, very, very important. The facility.
Well, it's been revealing, and we've had a lot of questions. Maybe next week we can dedicate it to fielding a lot more questions, because people have questions that they want you to answer.
Right.
In regards to these procedures that we're talking about.
Absolutely. So, Kwame, next week, we've done 2 sessions with Dr. Ankrah. So next week, we won't let him do a lot of talking. We'll let him take a lot of questions. But I know that he wants to talk to us about breast augmentation and breast reduction as well. So we cannot leave this conversation about cosmetic surgery without talking about breast, because, I mean, it's Lexis's favorite part of the female anatomy. So we said that in my street.
I'm just surprised that
that's his favorite part of the anatomy. So we'll talk about breast augmentation. And then we'll also talk about breast reduction next week.
Okay.
And then we'll field a lot of questions that we're not able to answer today.
All right, that's good. For those who want to get in touch with you, how do they reach out?
Right. So, Kwame, as you rightly mentioned, plastic and reconstructive surgery has been introduced at Medical's Hospital in a big way now at our Ashalibuche East Legon Hills branch. So, those who want to reach out, 0501 477 340. 0501 477 340, and a member of the team would be on hand to speak with you.
All right, that's Dr. Osafo and Dr. Nii Ayi Ankrah. Thank you so much, doctors. And we'll see you next week, yeah?
You're welcome.
All right.